I'm literally getting my mom back. It's
Wow.
yeah, it's beautiful. I was losing her, so for whatever reason, whether it was because of three of these or not, I'm getting my mom back.
God bless you,
I'm
Julia.
so grateful.
Wow. And you're crediting it to this, or there's a big part of that? You really
It
are?
started happening when this started happening.
Wow.
So Michelle Klann from your fantastic channel. Now, your channel is Our Great Awakening, is that right?
Yeah.
I always just Google your Michelle Klann, and obviously you were Miki Klann. And Michelle and I were just having an informal chat, and we said, let's just push the record button and see what happens, because I have been trying to connect with you, Michelle, for so long, because I've been following your work right since the start, when you were doing all the astrological readings, which were just amazing as well, and pulling everything together on that level. And what I'm so fascinated about, because I've been sort of doing the same, but in different areas, is just seeing how many different things you're pulling in now and connecting all the dots and everything.
Yeah. I'm definitely sort of an eagle spirit. I love coming up to the high view and then going into detail in any given area that needs help, or, I don't know, sometimes it just needs a little push. And so, yeah, I think that a lot of us now are learning to just move in that ebb and flow, that beautiful spiritual energy that's guiding us now, because it's becoming more and more clear. And so thank you for following my work. I've been a huge fan of your work too. As we were talking before we started recording, I just loved how you interviewed Ishmael. I just feel like you activated a whole nother layer or awareness that many of us have. And as I'm learning, and maybe you can help correct me, I'm learning there's sort of three waves that, the light or star seeds came in to this earth, right? The first wave was, the people that were maybe born in the 50s, 60s, maybe early 70s, and then you've got the 70s, 80s. So the first wave was called sort of the Emerald Order, or the Melchizedek Order, the Order of Light. So these are people that came to help lift up the awareness, the spiritual awareness. And then the second wave was the Indigo. And I'm an Indigo, but I'm right on the cuff. I'm literally like straddling between the two that we just mentioned. And then the third wave coming in, the younger, generation, are the crystalline, or the crystal children. And they're the ones that are really going to. Oh, my daughter is so strong in that.
You cut out then, Michelle. You just
sorry.
Your volume. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Were you saying your daughter is?
My daughter is definitely a crystal child, so much to where I could sense her frustration as a child in this 3D bipolar or polarity between good and evil, and having so much expression of love that she couldn't quite get out. And so the temper tantrums were more extreme. This is what I want now was a little more extreme, because she's not used to being on this sort of linear timeline.
Yeah, I so agree with that. And what I think for me, it's been so apparent that I've really observed, in particular over the last year, is I've really moved into, we've seen so much division at every level. And I think, everything is a mirror of what's going on a bigger scale. So in terms of people that we've been listening to, we've seen lots of division and things, but I've come to a new level of awareness of everyone's different roles. And I always use the analogy of it's like a football team, or soccer as you called it. There's no point if you've got all strikers. You've got to have defenders, you've got to have midfield, you've got to have the goalie, you've got to have the wingers, because all of us, every single one, including every single person that's watching this, we've got our unique roles. And I think the problem is we've all been so brainwashed into trying to emulate other people of what is perceived as being valuable information and valuable things. And actually, certainly my journey over the last year has been very much in terms of sinking in, not just for myself, but also appreciating with others that no one is meant to do all these different roles. And a bit like you, Michelle, I sort of flip between different roles and just put in, I'm not just interested in this or just interested in that. Health and wellness and empowering people in that area is my real passion, particularly with animals. But also you've got to pull in the different dots, so I go where I feel I'm needed.
I love that. Let's expand on that. Let's take that from right here where we all sit, because we're all sitting in 3D. and let's expand it, right? So what I think that one of the things society's done is really put us in a box, and they want us in a box. They want to keep us in a spiritual box forever. But really it's the body, the soul, and the spirit. The soul is the mind, will, and emotion. The spirit is much higher. They wanted us to think our soul was our spirit, but it's not. And if I've started to ask people the question between, hey, what's the difference between the soul and the spirit? They almost always say, I don't know, you know, because we have never been taught this. But the soul is actually the mind, the will, and the motion. So think of the will as being the choices that we make, almost like the tip of the spear. But you can almost start to learn that we're also being guided by, oh, shit, I've got someone coming to the door. Whoops. We might have to hit pause for just 1 second, but let me finish this thought. When we start to elevate up into the awareness of the spirit, we realize the spirit is always guiding us. And just as you mentioned, it's the printout almost. The reality we face now is the printout of what our spirit's been working on, maybe even for the last like 3 to 5 years, or even before we came here in our soul contract, right? So yes, not only do we all have different soul contracts, we're all being, guided by different angels and different spirits and different ideas and different motivations. And so we just have to learn how to guide ourselves with and align ourselves with those that are along our path at that moment. But then, to totally love and to respect and to appreciate what everyone else, because everything you learn from the minute you're born up until the minute that you become active in the spirit, as we are becoming active today, has been to prepare you for this moment. So your careers, everything you've ever educated yourself on, your spirit has known what it's working on. You know what I mean? It's us now just catching up to the fact that in the 3D, everyone's been working on a different contract and everyone else is coming with totally different set of skills. And we have to honor those. And I really came into that with the Bonds for the Wind project, because I'm such an eagle spirit. And I was bringing information to the wolf spirits, those that are very grounded. And then when I went to go find more information, they were like, where did you go? Who are you and where'd you go? And why are you leaving us? And I was like, I'm not leaving you. I'm gathering more information. I'm an eagle, and they're just looking at me like, what do you mean? So there's animal energies, there's spirit energies. There's just, if we just really expand and move with that new knowing and understand that we can love everybody else for wherever they are. And we can be honored by what it is that they're working with. And if it works within what we're working with, we spend more time with them. But if not, we let them go. And sometimes the past just, they just keep coming back together. And that's really okay. It's really okay. And on top of that, we're all ascending at different speeds. Exactly. Let me grab the door because this poor guy's sitting right out here.
You grab the door.
Okay, we'll hit pause.
We're back. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I think what you were saying, it is so important. And the more people feel comfortable stepping into themselves and, the good old saying, know themselves, the more they feel comfortable, just floating and going where that stream, where that energy covers them. And I think that is equally as important, because so many people have been taking on so much information over the last few years, which is fantastic. But we also need to allow ourselves time to integrate it.
100%. And so you asked me right when we started, what have you been doing for the last month? I've been integrating, expanding, and creating space for that expansion. So all these changes in the home, and just moving, redecorating, reorganizing, moving things around, reassessing. Okay, wait, if I'm going to create space for expansion, then I have to create a lot of self-love. And so that was what a beautiful sort of download I was getting today. And I actually got a bracelet to help me remember. So when I put it on, when I put these hearts on this way, it means I need self-love today. They're pointing at me.
Yeah.
I put it out the other way, I'm giving love. And the ultimate goal, I think, in this reality, in this time, is to build and is to become a light being and to express as much love as possible. Pure love, pure joy, pure light are the highest resonance words and the highest way of living. And so if you want to bring in pure love, pure joy, pure light, you have to realize that there's really an ebb and flow. It's like an ocean, it flows out and in. And if you don't practice pure love for yourself, you can't give it. And you can't, if you don't draw in more light in your space and in your reality, you can't give it, and you can't move that type out, and the more we expand our awareness of who we want and how many people we want to touch in our life with our pure love, pure joy, pure light, because there really is no limit to that either. We have to learn how to ebb and flow that for ourselves, even if you feel pulled. you know, in this reality. And so I've prioritized me over the last, and that has given me the freedom to just move in spirit, to just let all the information I'm meant to learn right now for my next phase to come in, you know, and yeah, but it's addicting. I think it's very easy to get addicting to the dopamine rush of new information. And we've all been in that, you know, intel, you know, just consuming information, and the dopamine is real. I mean, the more you learn, it's just like a video game, leveling up in a video game. The more you get to the next level, you want to get to the next one and the next one, and the next one. But in most video games, the higher you get, the harder it is to level to the next and the next and next, just because it takes more, there's just more information coming in. And it's the next level, you know? So that's what I've been doing. And I'm getting into the densities, because I think we're really confusing densities and dimensions.
Yeah.
And perspective, you know? So I think there are people that are really leading edge on this. I think that like Gaia is doing amazing work. So the sacred geometry is coming up in Gaia. The Matthias, I always forget his last name, is really talking on the dimensions. And then the densities, literally we're just tapping into. So I think when people say 5D, they could be talking about density or dimension, you know, and same thing with frequency and vibration. And so I feel like there's this, okay, you know how when you're tuning an instrument and you have all these dials,
Yeah.
we're all like coming into this real awareness of, okay, how do we find 0 point in this new knowing now? And then how can we use that to create almost a symphony or a dance?
Yeah. And how, when you're talking about you've been concentrating on the integration, I mean, I've been doing a lot of that over the last couple of months as well, but sort of in phases. But one of the things that I'm quite intrigued in, and I'd love your opinion on, is, how can I express this? It's like there's so much focus on, people are realizing, quite rightly so, that they can't give from an empty cup. So you have got to focus on self-love, on yourself, on making sure you're, you know, physically, emotionally, spiritually in balance, at peace, whichever way, you know, resonates with you. But equally, do you find that sometimes we take that too much against the fact the importance of contributing to community, to others, is equally as important as filling your own cup? So what I mean by that is, a lot of people I'm finding are sort of taking the self-love and the self-nurturing to mean that, you know, I stay in bed all day, or I do this or do that. Whereas actually for me, self-nurturing can be just as much about taking the focus off myself and giving out to others, because of what they get and what I get out of that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And everyone's got their own way of self-nurturing. Whatever fills your cup is what fills your cup. Whatever self-love, you know, it is to you, then, you know, it's good to explore that and to observe it and to become more observant of it. So I'm going to use an analogy, and I've told my closer friends this one a lot. So for those of you who know me really well, I'm going to repeat this because I think it's so important, especially for as many audiences as we can reach right now. And that is, when my son was 4 years old, I remember I was putting him to bed one night, and I was really working on this concept. How do I find the cup half full? That's all I was trying to practice. How do I find the cup half full? And I said, Cody, I said, if you had a cup, how full would it be? And he's like, oh, Mom, it's just overflowing. And I was like, wait a minute, what? It's overflowing. He says, oh, it's sloshing all over the place. And I said, okay, you know, I said, wait a minute, how big would it be? And he goes, it's as big as this whole house, and it's just falling over the rooftop. And I was like, that is a completely different perspective than where I was in my mind. And so not only right now can we allow for the expansion of the cup to get bigger, because we're about to experience such abundance and we all know it's coming, but we have to make space for that abundance. We have to start envisioning that cup getting bigger and bigger and bigger and fuller and fuller and fuller, because we've just been starved for so long. Doesn't mean that that's the way it's going to be. You know what I mean? So learning how to fill the cup and accept the cup and appreciate the cup is just as hard as learning how empty the cup is. And we just spent the last 2 years learning how messed up things were. Now we have to learn how to accept the greatness that's coming and to make space for it.
I love that so much, because one of the things in my day job, so to speak, is working with animals. Got my two very tired dogs in the background there, and they're humans. in that order, because I think so much as a human race, we've forgotten what it feels like to be healthy. We've forgotten what it feels like to be vibrant on purpose, to be part of a bigger community, to be, you know, really living each day in joy and gratitude, because we have had so much pressure from all these different sources that have made that so hard. And I think a lot of people, it's like when you ask people, what's your purpose, what's your dreams, what makes you, a lot of adults can't even go there because they've not been able to be in that space for so long. And I think it's so beautiful that we're having conversations like this now, because when you start reawakening those bits of yourself, you know we are all just energy. You take your energy with you wherever you go, whoever you interact with, and whether that's an aloe vera plant or a person or an animal, you're still taking that energy into that interaction. And when we start to really, like a child, just shake off those boundaries and get out of that box, everything starts shifting, doesn't it?
Everything. I mean, I feel very lucky to be in my situation. It's almost like my spirit was prepared for this time, because I've been able to strip down almost everything in my life down to almost, I mean, like imagine starting with a house that's unfurnished, with a refrigerator that's unfilled, and you're just going to put the most beautiful elements in it now. You're just going to put the things in it that you've wanted and desired to have. The real craftsman table, you know, the one that someone put so much love and heart and soul into, not the, you know, the MDF version from Pottery Barn. And I literally did just experience that. Pottery Barn's not real wood, and it wasn't made by a craftsman who loves it, you know. And the food, what is the most nurturing foods that I can take into my body and into my temple? Because the temple, the body temple, is also a reflection of the home temple. And we've never been able to build that up, you know, or maybe some of us have and some of us haven't. But so I'm actually breaking it down to the things. So stripping it all the way down. I fortunately have like a property that is a rental. So I just took the whole rental. So I wiped it clean, and I'm just literally rebuilding it. And I'm also thinking of, well, what feels good, what feels right for where I'm going next. And, you know, and then what foods, right? So, I mean, I've been working on this for years, for like probably the last 9 years. Simplify, wean off of this and this and this. And I'm to the point where my smoothies, I don't have anything besides 3 fruits and water. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I need. And it's good. It's so much better when we get rid of all the plastic in the kitchen and the labels. I don't even have to read a label. It's all God's label, you know. But that took me a long time, and that was one of the hardest programs for me to rewrite, for the record.
Yeah.
But now that I'm into this simplicity, and I'm into just the energy of the animals in the house, or I'm into just the energy of the furniture of the house and the energy of the food in the temple, you know what I'm saying? Now I have so much more clarity for who I am in spirit. And I'm telling you, like, it's all real. Nothing's random. Nothing is random. Everything that you have intuition, all of your intuition is real.
Absolutely.
Let me put another perspective on that too. And because I'm less cluttered now, I can see clearer. We've always said, oh, there's so much more in the mind. You're only using 3% of the mind, or we're only using 5%. And there's so much happening in the subconscious, and it's so incredible, or some call it unconscious, subconscious. I'm not sure what perspective we want to look at it from today, but if there's so much happening in the subconscious and we want to have more access to our mind, why are we not trusting our intuition?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm so lucky because I'm surrounded by loads of animals. I've created a life where I'm surrounded by loads of animals, but also I work a lot with animals as well. And it's just absolutely fantastic. When we look at, it's amazing how many of my scientific friends, you know, don't believe that animal communication is real. Yeah. But I've been doing this for years now. We can all do it. It happens to be something that I've homed in a lot on because it's something I'm passionate about. And you couldn't make this stuff up in a million years. You just couldn't. There's just no
give some examples. I want to hear.
Well, okay. So a few years ago, I got called out to a stable yard, didn't know the people, never met them before in their life. And they were quite, I could tell, you have some clients that are really open-minded, particularly the ones I'm meeting at the moment, since I've been more public speaking out. But these people I didn't know them at all. And this lady was there with her friends, and I could tell she was quite skeptical. So she was looking to catch me out. Now, as soon as I tuned into the horse, I could feel that there was this massive bridge between them and a lot of tension. And the horse told me straight away, I kid you not, she's pregnant and she doesn't know whether to keep the baby or not. And it's causing her so much stress and trauma. Now, they don't use those exact words, but that
Who was pregnant though? The owner or the
the
horse?
owner, the
Okay.
owner. And this was really awkward because I'm there with this woman that I've never before, obviously no physical signs of being pregnant, must have been very early days. And she's got all these people around there. And I thought, it's really personal. I can't with this. I can't just blurt this out. So then I have to act like a real diva. And I had to say to one of the ladies, I said, oh, could you go and get me a cup of tea from the tap room? And she's obviously thinking, what a cheat. Why should I make the tea? And then the other lady, I had to make some other excuse and sort of say, oh, could you go and do this? Because I had to get rid of these two people first, because I didn't want to give that sort of information out in front of other people. Anyway, as soon as they'd gone, I said, I had to get rid of them. I've got to tell you this. I did it. She burst into tears. She said, I haven't even told my boyfriend yet because I haven't decided what to do about it. Anyway, she then sent the other people around, and the information the horses were giving. So the animals know so much more about us. You know, there's so many examples of when it's very difficult to get an animal to talk about themselves. They know everything that's going on in our lives. And the problem is our human energy is so dominant to them that if we're okay, they're okay. If we're in balance, if we're at peace, they're in peace. You know, if you're take it, how can you know, humans are the only species in the world that have forgotten how to feed ourselves. No animal in the wild would survive without having those basic instincts intact. And all of us have experienced over the last few years what it's like to have people that we don't trust make decisions for us and try and enforce them on us. But you look at a typical dog and cat that's owners feeding them kibble, for example, that's got no nutritional value, and they think you can feed your dog or cat the same thing every day from a packet and that's okay. That animal has got a breakdown in trust in that human because they don't feel safe with that human. So the stories that they can tell us and the insight that they can go deep into our soul's intuition and just make shifts and changes about what's really important to us is just unbelievable. And I think, you know, you were saying, why do we find it so difficult to tune in and listen to our intuition? Because so many people that I've experienced recently, you know, they'll start doing that and sort of acting like that, but it's hard for them to then break the external validation, isn't it? How do they get validation for listening to their intuition? And often isn't there, then that can dip people's confidence, I think.
Yes. Well, before we go away from animals, I mean, I've been told in the past that dogs are very easy to heal with your hands. Cats are because they're so willing to let that out, let all that energy out, and that we can learn from them on how they do it so readily. So I think that's another big energy shift. We need to let out all the trauma that we've just learned over the last 2 years. And again, let in the new energy that's coming, because we really want to bless that new energy and we want to learn how to work with the new energy. But so I was also told that when an animal goes to heaven, they actually report back on how the human treated them.
Yeah.
That there's you know, there's actually a complete choice. You've chosen to have these animals in your life. They're there to help and heal and guide, and we just haven't learned how to tune into them yet. So I say yet, right? Because we will.
We are. And I think that's such a gift to us because they have got so much to teach us. And, you know, you look at anyone who's on a spiritual journey and they spend so much time, quite rightly so, looking at about how to be in the present moment and tune into our intuition. But the more time we spend with animals, with nature, it's there. They're doing it day in, day out. And, you know, that is infectious. And
in the moment too. They can release anything in that moment.
Absolutely. And they let things go as well. I've got some really great chats coming up about the ego and you know, what is the purpose of the ego and how it serves us, but how it can very easily get out of balance. But, you know, animals don't have an ego. If you see animals having a disagreement, one, there's always a good reason for it. And secondly, they let it go. You know, 6 months later, they're not saying, I'm so pissed off about what they did to me.
Right. And that was kind of why I was bringing up the expansion of the mind, will, and emotion being the ego. The way to bypass that is to go straight to the spirit. And you can have a spirit conversation with yourself at any time, and the spirit's not affected by the ego. And you can have a spirit conversation with an animal at any time, and the animal's not affected by the ego. And you can have a spirit conversation with your loved ones. You can just say, I wish to only speak to their highest self at this time so that I can understand what their, ego mind maybe even needs. So it is a way to bypass that engine that is on overdrive. And we are on overdrive. We were put on overdrive. This was all by design. We actually almost have to forgive ourselves for the choice to come here on overdrive for this time. But especially for those of us that are maybe straddling between the indigo and the emerald, the middle-aged to the old, to the elder, star seeds, we really need to hold that space and realize, okay, we've lived a lifetime of this hamster wheel. It's now time to start shedding and rewriting our reality to what it can be, where it's simple. What does our simple life look like? And what does our busy life look like? If I had a simple life and I were to lay it out, what would that look like? And if I was to eat simply and not be stressed out about food and not be stressed out about how I'm going to get food on the table, what would that look like? And what would it look like if I did have, I don't know, $1 million in the bank account?
It is, and the simplicity is so key. I mean, there's so much out there for anyone, regardless of where you're at. There's so many great podcasts, so many great books, and the message is consistently the same as far as I've seen. I'd love your opinion on this. One, it is the simple things in life that bring true happiness and true peace. And secondly, that it's all an inside job. And what I mean by that is we all know how wonderful it feels like to be around someone that is truly living in that simplicity and peace and isn't trying to inflict their lifestyle choices on someone else. And I don't mean at all, I love having engaging discussions. Some people now they call them arguments. To me, it's not an argument, it's a discussion. And those discussions can sometimes get passionate because how else are we going to learn? And how else are we going to open our hearts and minds to different perspectives and understand those around us more? But when you're in the presence of someone that is really in that place of non-judgment, but also really confident about their choices, it's just a beautiful energy to be around, isn't it?
And they can give so much more, and they can shed so much more light on where you're going if you want it, so that is exactly what I'm saying. The more we give and we receive, the bigger the cup gets, the more we can give, the more we can help and impact and empower and love people for where they are and exactly where they are. We can't necessarily become a sidekick in their movie, but we can be an observer of their movie and honor it and appreciate it and help them understand how big of an impact they're having. So yes, and yes, and yes, so the more work we do to unwind and unravel the clutter in our lives. And a lot of people are doing shadow work right now. They're going into those spaces, they're observing. Okay, I wasn't observing how often I interrupt someone, for example. Why am I interrupting them? And at what points? And am I trying too hard? Can I sink into it? And so it's that. And I go back and forth between shadow work, liking shadow work, and or working on the visionary work. I think you have to balance it all. To balance, you can go into the space, but don't hate yourself. Don't get lost in the loop of it. Go into the space to observe it, but without judgment at all, because you're going here. So when you know where you're going, and then you go back and to observe the way you've been, now you can hate yourself a little less about the way you've been, love yourself for what the habits you've established, and then focus back on how can I rewrite those programs in my mind? How can I shed those bad habits and enter into greatness and where I know the good habits? So I don't know how really else to explain that. I'm literally thinking and talking at the same time, which is always dangerous, because I haven't processed this. This is something I'm still trying to process. What is the healthiest way to love ourselves through this change? So if we get on that mindset, I believe, and what's always worked for me, is when I go into a meditation, and my therapy is meditation, and I imagine what my spirit's working on. Where am I in the spirit realm today? Where is my spirit and what's she going to teach me? And what is she working on? How's that going for her? Those visions don't always come naturally. Sometimes I really have to go deeper into it, but that has always been the best psychology for me, because when I realize how glorious we are in spirit, I mean, there's just, they're calm. My spirit energy, my highest self is calm. She always knows where I'm going. She almost always laughs at what I'm working too hard on. I'll just give a quick example of that. So it took me a little while, but I set my inner child free in those visualizations. And my child was like 8 years old. And then the very next day or 2 days later, she comes up out of the ocean as this dripping golden angel. And I was like, whoa, like, that's my inner child. She's like, no, I'm your highest self. And you just set me free. And I'm like, how do I become you? You know what? And so then as life was happening, I would come into situations that were stressful or traumatic, and I would go into the visualization and I'd be like, okay, where am I? And I'd be able to see my 3D self. Okay, now where's my spirit or my angel? And one time I was so mad at work and I was mad at the men and I couldn't break through a barrier. And I found myself in this sort of, in my vision, trying to scale a muddy wall with my hands and feet. I'm trying to climb a muddy wall. And I finally just stopped climbing. I looked at my hands and I'm like all dirty. And I'm thinking, okay, well, where's my spirit? I turn around, she's right there, and she's right there. And she's looking at me like, why are you using those hands and feet when you have these? She points to her wings. Like, what are you doing? And I remember just like everything stops and you're like, you're right. What am I doing? And it just gives you a whole new perspective of, you don't have to fight and claw and get messy and dirty. You can literally just step out of any situation you're in and observe it from another perspective. And then next thing you know, it's as if it all just dripped away. Like everything you were working on, everything you were stressed out about drips away as something you don't need to control right now.
I love it. And you know, perspective is everything. I mean, I quite often talk about, I love Joe Dispenza. I've seen him live a few times. And, you know, when you see someone that can just keep going all day, no notes, in their flow, in their passion, and how much energy they've got at the end of the day, to me, that really epitomizes what you were talking about, is there is no limit to the size of our cups. And when we observe that we're not in that state, that's absolutely fine, because it just means that, okay, do we need to pause a bit and sort of ask those questions? Because I've been guilty of that for so long, my friends laugh at me, my family laugh at me, because everything's exciting and everything's excellent. And I love this and I love that. And, you know, I genuinely have never felt like I'm living on a prison planet. That's never been my reality. I love nature. I love the planet. I think it's beautiful. I love all the creatures on it, most of them. It's taken me quite a long while to get to the stage of appreciating humans. I will hand up to that. But everything else, and I am getting there. I'm not 100% there yet. But I'm getting there. Depends which day you catch me on. But I can really laugh at all this now, Michelle, because I can see the comedy sides of it. And when I'm looking sort of down at myself and observing myself, I really can, for the first time in years, I can really laugh at it and sort of say, okay, course correct here. You know, I can see, and I think.
But everything's available in abundance in the universe. So you can draw in the energies and the experiences among people, or you can draw it in among animals, or you can draw it in among nature, whatever soothes you. Maybe you've spent more time in your life drawing that abundance in through nature and family and, you know, animals. But now you're ready to expand into drawing in the highest order of humans.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind at all. And again, I get laughed a lot about this, you know, because most people disagree with me. But I genuinely mean, I absolutely have a knowing that there is no limit to our potential.
Well, and let's talk about acceptance, because you went into that. Go back into the acceptance. How do you accept where you are today without expectation of moving faster than you're supposed to go? How do we learn to accept?
I always want to move faster. I mean, my nickname is Hurry Up, because I enjoy it all. You know, when people say your life's too full, I've had this my whole life where people say you're doing too much, but it's never been too much for me.
Yeah.
Because when I've sat there and objectively looked at all the different bits of my life, I've really enjoyed all those bits, and I've looked and I've thought, well, do I want to put any of these down? And occasionally there's a yes, but a lot of the time there's a no. And, you know, a classic example is having so many animals. Yes, it does make it more difficult to get away. Yes, I do get up early in the morning and late at night, but that's my choice and I love it. And the benefits are is that I am out exercising, rain and shine. I understand a lot about the importance of diet, nutrition and exercise, etc. So in terms of what I do about it, I'm constantly asking the questions now. And
but if we really do want to create room for expansion, we have to eliminate some of that busyness, even though it's thrilling and exciting. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. It
Well,
depends.
let me just give one perspective, and it's just a perspective.
Yeah. It depends what your definition of business is. So my best meditations and inspirations come when I'm out doing the animals in the morning or walking the dogs or something. So I absolutely love meditating, but I don't always need to sit still on my own to do it. When I'm out and I'm in that energy of nature, then I'm in a complete state of flow and things can come into me much more so than I can if I'm sitting at my desk.
So that's maybe a practice to put out there to let people know if energy is how you draw your peace and your calm and your stillness, then we should be out in nature more. Those that need that, you know, I know I do, you know, I'll never forget it. And many of us that live in the city have a hard time getting to the nature. You know what I'm saying? Like I live on a preserve, so I can go find it. Like, and it sounds like you're kind of out in the country.
Yeah.
And so it's all around you. Would you suggest for those that love nature to go maybe look at a property or even a small plot of land where they can get a little trailer and spend time out there?
Absolutely. What I would say is there's always a way, you know. So I get loads of people saying to me that, you know, when the abundance comes, I want to run an animal sanctuary, and my answer is always, why wait? If you're drawn to be working with animals or children or elderly people or driving the community bus, doesn't matter what it is for you, then start now, however small it is, because when you start acting on those, so, you know, if you're in a position and you live in the city and you really want nature, well, is there a possibility at a weekend where you could go and volunteer somewhere or help out somewhere or you know, have an energy exchange like that? Because I know it is very difficult, you know, like in the UK, buying land is ridiculously expensive, you know. It's not an option for a lot of people,
right?
However, if that's not an option, there's other ways that you can do it. So I was just speaking to a lady before this call, and she's looking at getting one of the tiny houses and asking all the local farms and everything, could she put one of those there in return for volunteering? So when you're creative, there's so many ways. And I think it is hard if people are feeling a lot of stress, a lot of financial pressure, etc. However, that's where good friends come in, where you can say, someone can say, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And for every 5 ideas that might not resonate with you, there'll be one that does, where you just think, oh, okay, I've got another friend, amazing lady, and she literally lives in a shepherd's hut on a field with all her rescue animals. She's having the most amazing time. She's so quick. It's incredible. And
she
you
lives
know,
in a what?
A shepherd's hut. So a wooden shepherd's hut, a sort of little wooden structure with a wood burning stove, not much electricity, just a generator for electricity. She is so off grid and she's living an amazing, healthy, vibrant life. Whereas a couple of years ago, she thought that was completely impossible. And then she started asking, what if, making some inquiries. And within a course of a year, she's there and living her dream. But
that's amazing.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing what's achievable. And what she did is we were having this conversation one day and we were talking through various things. And then we started getting into the what if. And then she managed to, because she'd opened her mind to it, she found on the internet this amazing guy that was making these from scratch. And so everything started, once she'd opened her heart to it, all the bits of the jigsaw puzzle started falling in place. It was just incredible.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And that's one way for us to strip down the necessities and the needs, especially when money doesn't become a factor, because you're living off the land and it's simple and you can really reassess what you want to maybe reintegrate doing. At least that way you can come out and then decide how you want to and if you ever want to reintegrate. And with the internet, you know, you can stay integrated and you can stay learning. Do you think
Yeah.
she has the internet out there?
She has very intermittent internet.
Okay.
Very intermittent, but she does have a friend in town that if she needs to do a Zoom meeting or something, she can go to her house. And this is what I love. It's this sharing of the resources. And what you were saying about the busyness, I completely agree with you to a point. But what I find is that everyone will go through different stages of your life. So most people, by the time they get to 40, don't want to live the same lifestyle they were living when they were 20.
Right.
And, you know, when my children were really young, it was a very different set of priorities to now the fact that they're young adults and things. So what you as an individual need can be very, very different, the right here, right now. And I think it's so hard in today's work for people. I hate using that word, it's so hard, but you know, with the social media, with the accessibilities, you've got all these choices. I did a show with some of my friends about how too many choices can be such a major stressor for people.
Yeah. Right. You have to start going within and you have to start asking, what is my path? And don't compare your path to anyone else. Breathe in acceptance, breathe out expectation, you know, breathe in what you need, breathe out what you thought you needed, because we've all been conditioned through such a propaganda machine to think we have to be this or that, or we need a house like this or an animal like that to keep up with the Joneses or to just to survive. And now you're actually going to be given, and again, as this reevaluation comes through and this massive transition or transfer from the wicked to the righteous from a financial perspective, and that's all happening. We all know it's happening. Those that are tuning in now know it's happening. We have to start creating space for that. And we have to ask ourselves, how do I, and where do I, in my circumstance, need to go to find myself again?
Yeah.
And that might be a totally different area of the world. That might be a simplified living. That might be, you know, literally selling all of your things. Who knows? And yeah, based on your life, based on your you know, stage in life, based on the loved ones, the support system that you have, based on your health, you know, but all of this can only bring in more abundance, because then you get to reintegrate the way you always wanted to be integrated, the way that it's hard to be free. I don't want to use the word hard either, but we have to start thinking of what would it feel like to be free. It's harder to let go than it is to do something. Surrender is where all the magic happens. But I remember when I started meditating, and I remember the agitation I would feel in the meditation. I got to get up. I just have too much on my to-do list. But it's in that surrender that you find yourself. It's in that surrender that you go into your intuition and that you realize that that voice has been calling you the whole time, just like the animals.
So what are some of for you, because it sounds like you've been through quite a few transitions this year. So what are some of your key things that you've really learned? You know, for example, like, have you moved house recently then?
Well, I have two properties, and the one was sort of a guest home, and now I'm just kind of spending more time in it, like a sanctuary, like a temple. Like, this is where I do my work now. So it's more of an office or a spiritual place. And so when you create an intention for that space and it becomes a temple, now the things you bring in it are different. The things that are speaking to you are different. The creativity that flows through it is different. The energies, literally, is as if you could open a portal. Our body temples are a Tesla tower. That is the halo effect. When we start opening up into that 8th chakra, we start to get downloads. We start to get information. We start to realize there's so much light moving in and through us. You can do the same in the physical. So usually the physical is a representation of how you're treating your own body temple. You know, so anyone who's living alone. But when you have a family, which is, you know, my kids are just getting now older, so they want less and less to do with mom and dad. And so, you know, at 14 and, you know, at 13 and 14 right now, they're becoming much more interested in the influence of peers. So for me, it gives me a little separation. Whereas when they were 2 and 3, I wouldn't have had that choice to be able to adjust the energy. The energies in the house are just chaos, whether you like it or not. So then I was tuning into their laughter, you know, okay, how can I draw from the laughter of this energy? If you have roommates, you know, it's time to start maybe making just your bedroom your temple, you know, and to make that a sacred space, and know the importance of that sacred space and what you bring in it. Is it crystals? Is it, you know, animals? Is it art? What are you bringing in there that resonates, and why? And make it fluid. You know, really make it a fluid process. And those are where you're getting the clues too. So we talk a lot about, I've become much more aware of the printout. So again, what's guiding what, right? We talked about spirits guiding soul, the mind, will, and emotion. Ultimately, spirit should be in the driver's seat, not the mind.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a goal, right? Because we're all on the path to learning how to do that and master that. But there's a printout happening all the time. The numerology, the gematria, all that is a printout of what's going on in that body, soul, spirit, right? But that just gives us clues of what we're working on, or where we are today. That's the observation. The DNA itself is the code. It has everything in it: the Akashic record, the scroll of destiny, your mantle, your spiritual mantle of what you came here to do. And there's a minimum and maximum potential within that DNA based on how we respond. But then the DNA prints out the cell, and then you end up with trillions of cells in your body, which prints out the body temple. But there's nothing that is more sacred than the knowing of your spiritual journey, of why we came here, and what our Akashic record is, our scroll of destiny is, so that we can come in alignment with that. Because when you come in alignment with that, that's when you enter into the true flow of your natural state.
Yeah. And how have you been incorporating trial and error into your journey for this? Because I think a lot of people, I see a lot of people not wanting to start until they feel they've found their soul purpose. And what I've learned is you start and then it comes. It's a bit like build it and it will come. I mean, how have you found that journey for you?
Well, first you have to become aware of it. And then you have to realize how divine it is. Right? And everyone has such a beautiful plan and path. And then there's no one that's better than the other. They're all equal, no matter how big or small, or how, whatever your influence is, doesn't mean the path isn't beautiful. You've been given gifts by God, and his intention with giving those gifts was so that you could give those forward. And so I remember one time asking, and by the way, as we give those gifts forward, that is how we build our treasury in heaven. That's how we build our karma. So for me, first becoming aware of the mantle that I carry. How did I come aware of that mantle? It was sort of like I looked at my body of work throughout my lifetime, what I chose to learn, who I chose to interact with, what were the lessons I was drawing in, which were the ones I learned from. Those were all preparing me for now. Think of, right, just for a minute, of all the mantle, the sheer mantle that Trump carries. Think of all the things he did in his lifetime to prepare him for what we just saw him go through.
Exactly. Oh my goodness.
Now that's just a big one. Not all of us carry a big spiritual mantle like him. He's a King David or a Cyrus of this time, right? And so we can look upon that and draw inspiration. He found his, now I'm going to find mine. Right. And so when you find yours, it's really beautiful and it's divinely yours. And it actually, you'll find that it resonates with you in a way that lights up every time you get closer or get in that path or get back into alignment with that purpose. Right. So, and a lot of times I'm aligning myself with other people's purposes too, and I'm seeing theirs and I'm reminding them of how beautiful theirs is. So it's kind of like, let's say there's like 50 paths. But when you find your divine path, that's where the secret sauce is. That's where you start to just feel like life gets easy. It gets simple. It gets fun. It gets divine. It gets like joyful. And that's the more joy you bring in. And then you got to learn to stop on the path and enjoy the surroundings here and there, or feel in the energy. Because if you don't, then you don't even receive it.
It's that stopping and appreciation is so important. And it's interesting because I've seen a lot of people commenting that, say when the financial abundance comes, so many people have gone in commenting about what a disaster, because then no one will want to sweep the streets, no one will want to look after the elderly. And I don't see it like that at all. I mean, right at the start of this journey, one of my friends I was talking about, we were talking about financial abundance, and she's got a very, very highly paid job, and she said, well, when I have financial abundance, I just want to drive a bus around with old people, taking them out on fantastic days out. The human nature, we are such community people and we take such joy in helping others. And I have the greatest of faith that actually society will run brilliantly with that, because some people really love cleaning. Some people really love administration. Some people really love, I absolutely love cleaning out my animals. I love it. So some people think mucking out horses, I mean, mine live out, but, you know, poo picking, cleaning out the rabbits, the guinea pigs. I love it. It gives me such a sense of satisfaction to get their environment as good as I can. Everyone has got, was to other people. If you told my twin sister that, it's her worst nightmare. But she's much better at keeping the house immaculate than I am. We've all got these things that actually to other people could not be appealing, but to us are. And I have complete faith that our diversity will make sure that everything that needs to be is covered.
And that's how we start to interact again. That's how we start to integrate again. And it's like, if you think of it like an animal and the dog pack, right? They all have different interactions too. So but yet their life is to give. Just like you said, they are almost, they don't even know how to stop giving to their owners. That brings it full circle to what you're saying. That is our natural animal instinct, is to give.
Yeah.
And by giving, we receive. So imagine a world where everyone can give their gifts and give their way. That is something we almost have to open our mind to and imagine the possibilities, you know, without resistance, because if we resist it, we're going to block it.
Yeah.
If we say, oh, that's not possible. That's just, it's not possible to live like that. You know, no one would want to work. And then, you know, some people say, well, we'll build a bunch of robots. Well, then we live in an even more robotic AI world. Really?
We're not going down the robot road. We are not. Yeah. I'm ruling that out now.
I'm ruling it out. No more AI. I don't want any more devices in my house. My simple temple, I have a lot less electronics in it, you know, because I don't want that interference, you know, because that interference is going to affect my ability to know where I'm going next and where I'm supposed to go, where God's calling me. And again, I've said this a lot. It's like God is moving his pieces everywhere, and every piece is equally important, you know, and we have to allow him to move the pieces now. And that is entering into the age of Aquarius. That is really entering into this, you know, if you look at this, resonance pattern that's about to change, you know, when you change the frequency of across the whole world, it's going to change the way that we live. So if you look at that big, huge, you remember, have you ever seen those big drums where there's all the sand particles on the drum, change the resonance of it, and next thing, you know, it forms a whole new pattern. You know, that's what's going to happen. I could literally see people just being like, all right, I have enough money, I'm going to go find my twin flame. Or I have enough money, I'm going to go find the perfect house for me. Or I have enough money, I'm going to go find my joy in creating furniture. Whatever.
I completely agree. I completely agree. So what is it? So if we take where we are now, because a lot of people that I've been speaking to, you know, on this wave is you're positive, something comes out, positive come out. It's a big old wave that people are riding. So what would be your key message to people that are on that roller coaster at the moment and feeling that?
Okay, so we're going to be coming off a bit of a rush of riding a wave. And so I'm suggesting that you find a spot on the beach and you lay in the sand and start observing the ebb and the flow of the ocean as it comes into the earth and comes back out, comes into the earth and comes back out. You're going to get information on an as need to know basis by spirit. It will come. It's a feed that's never ending. It's like a current. It doesn't stop. It will always be here to support you and guide you and love you. The universe is always cheering you on. So it's really okay to bask in the sun for a little bit, to receive that knowing of who you are and what you're meant to be. You know, I mean, there is just as much dopamine and excitement when you're in the flow of, and there's more because it comes easier when you're in the flow of your divine destiny. So, but you don't know your divine destiny until you slow down to hear it.
Absolutely.
It's hard for people.
It's really hard. And, you know, I'm constantly really observing how much of the day my animals sleep and rest. And it's a really good lesson. It's a really good lesson. And whatever that looks like for you, because everyone's going through different stages and everyone gets their batteries recharged in different ways. And, you know, that might change week to week for you, day to day. But when you really tune in with how you are really feeling and are making sort of conscious decisions about how am I feeling about this? How am I feeling about that interaction? It's so much easier, isn't it, to make those decisions?
It is so much easier. And if your body's saying, go lay down and rest, go lay down and rest. Exactly. Listen to your body. don't stress about it. I mean, you almost have to shed the layers of guilt for
Yeah.
doing it. I did that. For the last 9 years, I learned to self-heal, and you couldn't self-heal unless you took time, lots of time for relaxation. And because the layers, they shed faster than you put them on. Believe it or not, you can shed, so you can work hard for 12 hours and take 1 hour of meditation in the middle of the day, and you can shed all of that, if not, and go centuries backwards. It's possible. You know, and letting go, I guess. And I shouldn't go that expansion. Let's stick to where people are today. You can start unwinding years of your life, years of the tension. Think of yourself as a beautiful tree, and all the rings of the tree are the tension that in every year of your life, you had different circumstances. So there's a different type of ring. Just 1 hour a day, or even doing this meditation practice of consciously tuning in the mornings. So that's the best time. It's when you're most relaxed. Where am I going? Instead of feeling you have to pop out of bed, wait till every single cell is ready to get out of bed. And don't hate yourself if you don't get out of bed till 12 noon. I'm talking noon. Don't be mad about it. Give yourself the space. Start to almost cut off the responsibilities and open up the possibilities.
And I would say, you know, both Michelle and I, we've both had, I mean, my children are just over a year apart as well. They're 21 and 20 and 21 now. I get confused.
Yeah, me too, always.
By now. But the thing is also, what I would say is, for those parents of young children at the moment as well, don't worry when you hear things like that. And so to say, well, of course I can't stay in bed 12, but there would be bits that you can do. So everyone's circumstances is my advice would be, concentrate on what you can do, but also embrace that time of life. You know, when you move past that stage, now I can look back and I can say why people like you just don't want to wish any area of your life away. It's we're going through this life's journey, and every stage of your journey will be different, and it will have different ups and downs and different pressures and things. But
things get easier when you surrender. That's one thing you have to let people,
I
you have to
agree.
put that in. You think you're giving up hours of your day, but you're actually letting in possibilities in your life. You think, oh, you know, because the 3D matrix has conditioned us tightly. So even if you extend your, you know, meditation in the morning by 15 minutes, that 15 minutes will create all new openings. And then 30 minutes will create even bigger openings. And, you know, so when you know that that is a law, it's a law of the universe. It is a secret law. It's been kept from us for a long time, and you can start practicing it. I don't know the law. Maybe it's the law of expansion. Maybe this is how you teach the law of expansion. It's just flowing. I don't know. But the world's about to open up. So we have to learn how to expand. And you can't expand unless you create space for yourself to know how and where you want to expand to. Otherwise, you're just flying, you know, you're just you know, that thing, those advertisements out in front of the commercialized places where they're just flying around. It's like there's air blowing up into the, do you know what I'm talking about? Those flying things.
Oh, yes, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I don't want to be reactionary in my life. I want to be mindful. I want to be walking in sacred honor. I want to be on a sacred path, you know, and just that choice changes how I show up to every circumstance in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the great thing is I know I used it earlier with it. It's hard to do this. And yes, because changing habits, you know, if you understand how habits are formed, then it's much easier to change them or replace them with ones that are more beneficial to you where you are now. But as you said earlier, without beating yourself up about that. And, you know, I think the thing is, what I would encourage everyone, and when I'm saying this, I'm always talking to myself as much as everyone else, but just try it. Just try it. You know, you look at little children, they're not afraid. You know, none of us would have ever learned to walk in the first place if we just had those resistances in place. And when you try it, and if you decide you don't like it, it doesn't matter. Fantastic. Try something else. And I think as adults, so many people have just had it bashed out of them as to not try something, or you have to know where it's going to make a decision, do that. And you absolutely don't. You know, when you're tuning in with your intuition, you know, that's where the beauty of allowing yourself to use your instincts and be guided, whether you call it inner knowing, whether you, whatever you want to call it for you, the stress just comes straight off. I mean, I'm not a religious person at all. I'm a very spiritual person, but religion has never been a big part of my life. But I always remember when I was a teenager, I had a couple of really good friends who were really religious. And I'm laughing now, and if anyone ever watches this, I'm really sorry, because when they lived their whole life at that stage, they were the most laid back people I know. Now, I know a lot of people have negative connotations with religion. My two friends were so laid back, and every single thing that was stressing the rest of us teenagers out, they just said, well, whatever God's will, we've done. And they were fine. And I can remember one day saying to them, that's such a cop out, but it was fantastic for them. It was fantastic. So, you know, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Whatever works for you to receive that guidance, receive it.
Yeah. And now we're entering into a space where you're going to be able to do that safely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without fear.
Yeah. When you're safe and supported, it just makes all the difference.
And through the laws of entanglement, those of us that are receiving this message now, we are working in a much higher order. We have to take honor and nobility in that now, and to start to be an expression of that, to guide those behind us. And I'm just saying, those that are going to come into the knowing and the awakening. And because there's a lot of people, as the mainstream news starts to bring in the second wave of awakening, we have to be, again, on the wave of expansion. So if we're going to be leading the world into a safer place, we have to first start with ourselves. We have to practice ourselves. And so for me, I'm doing that expansion in the physical and my living environment and my body temple, so that I can create room for that expansion. And it's hard for me to prioritize myself, just like anyone else. It's hard. That's harder for me than it is to give and to go off on a Bonds for the Win mission to save the kids or something. You know, it's like, I have a warrior princess side of me, but I also have a loving, kind, spiritual, guided understanding of where I'm going. And it's much more expansive than I've been living in now. So I have to create room for that expansion. So I know that people think that that means you're quitting or you're giving up, but that's not at all what you're doing. You're sitting and enjoying the smell of the roses and the scene from that lookout point that you just hiked that mountain. And now you're about to do something even bigger.
Absolutely. There's so much I want to talk to you about. Honestly, I said in this, but we better probably bring it to a close now. Otherwise, we'll go on for another 2 hours. Quite easy. There really is. But I think
I feel like this was a Kairos appointment. I feel like there's so much energies that we can continue to bring, and there's maybe a few more episodes we should do.
I so would love that, because for me, when I'm having these chats, I am absolutely not trying to tell anyone how to do things or pretending I've got it all sorted. But for me, what works really well is real life experiences and having these discussions. And, you know, I will go away and re-listen to this, which I don't normally do. And then that will provoke new things and new ideas for me as well. And, you know, that's what that's all about, opening yourself up to that flow. And we've definitely got to continue this. I
was thinking the same, that this was one of those I'm going to watch again, because I really want to take in the energies of the animals, and I want to learn that is so beautiful. And I so appreciate your work. I appreciate you've taken the time to do that work in order to deliver that to us today, you know, because now we're ready for it, you know. And so it's just really beautiful. And I don't know any horses, but I'd like to meet some.
Oh, I tell you what, I think, you know, we are so moving into the stage where we're going to stop just talking about humanity and all creatures great and small, because this planet is for all of us. And even when we know that the language is powerful, and that inclusiveness, you know, really does make it heaven on earth. So I really, really appreciate speaking to you today. I can't wait to arrange another one. I'm really looking forward to seeing what's working for them as well, because I really encourage people to share, because everyone's got their different way of doing things, and everyone's got something that they've discovered that works for them. And you know, sharing really is caring, because you can just spark someone to try something new. It can shift everything so quickly.
I so appreciate you, and I so appreciate the work. Like, it's hard for us to bare our souls and to share our bumps in the road and to share our journey. And, you know, you started right at it just seemed like the work that you've done and the time you spent to help us and to guide us. I really appreciate you. And So thank you. I
Bless you.
needed to come out more.
Thank you. We'll be back. And thank you so much for the people that connected us. Candy, you know who you are. Thank you. Speak soon.
All right. Thank you.
I know, now I'm gonna cry. So
That-
I mean, I'm literally getting my mom back. It's
Wow.
yeah, it's beautiful. I was losing her, so for whatever reason, whether it was because of three of these or not, I'm getting my mom back.
God bless you,
I'm so
Julia.
grateful.
Wow. And you're crediting it to this, or does a big part of that? You really
It
are?
started happening when this started happening.
Wow.